Hello, hello, and welcome back to Soulstar Radio. I'm Jacquelene Closemore, and today we're going to talk women's health, which often is not really gone into about spiritual sort of things and even with psychics, but I think it's kind of an important topic to cover. And, of course, we have our resident doctor, Dr. Anthony Holding from Whittlesea Chinese Medicine Clinic joining us again today, and he's in Whittlesea, and today I'm off remote way over in many other hills, but we're going to be talking about that. But also overnight, we've had changes to the Therapeutic Goods Administration in Australia who have approved some medicines there. And we had this guy on there this morning that kind of reminded me of, well, let's not go into that, but let's just say that I thought he was a cranky guy. And he seemed to be a bit of a naysayer. And he was referring to one of the medicines being listed as moisturising the triple heater, which he thought was ridiculous. Yes, some of that terminology does sound ridiculous, but the triple heater is actually a thing. But I'm sure that Dr. Anthony will go into that more with us, and also about women's health today. Now, we've got you there, Dr. Anthony.
Yes, good morning, Jacqueline. How are you today?
Doing well, darling. How are you?
Very good. Apologies for my computer playing up this morning.
That's all right. I'll have to be there live in person next time. I think I'll just have to get off my patootie and get down there. But it's good to have you on the show. Good. Now, we've had, did you hear that crazy wacko guy? I've just seen it on the ABC this morning, ABC News 24, and they were talking about, and he's got this South African accent, and he was going, or possibly German, I'm not quite sure, but he sounded very aggressive anyway, and he was going on about the TGA changes overnight and approvals of medicines, and so he's talking about the complementary medicines, and there was one of the things he says was, what garbage people are paying for and moisturising of the triple heater. Now, I know that some of the terminology and some of the things that go on with, and we've talked about it before, some of the complementary, supplements and things like that can be a bit sort of garbled. Yep. But what's your explanation of what he's saying there, moisturising the triple heater, and what is the triple heater?
Yes, well, thank you for the question. And, of course, he would, of course, focus on something like that because ignorance is bliss, really, isn't it? And they like to pick on us because our terminology is completely different to those. But, try and understand their terminology. Chinese medicine's got an awesome understanding of how the body works. It's been around for 5,000 years. Western medicine, I don't think it's made 100 years yet, has it? The medicines and things. Anyway, the problem with them is we're actually getting people better. We don't have to use drugs to get people better. So they'll pick on things like Sanjiao, triple burner, dampness, we use water retention as a dampness thing. So the triple burner that he's talking about is the Sanjiao meridian, which runs up through the arms, then goes into the torso. So we divide the torso into three: upper, lower, and middle jiao. These are things that they look at us and go, "You are crazy." But when you get a full understanding or an understanding of the Chinese medicine way of how we treat, it actually makes a lot of sense. I unfortunately didn't hear it this morning. I was actually at an event. We've got a music festival here this weekend. I was down working on that, but I'll listen to it on replay later this afternoon. But I'm actually wrapped through the Health Party of Australia to actually get that through the TGA through the support of a couple of ministers. So I'm excited to say that allied health is here to stay.
Absolutely, and I think that the more conservative factions in Australian politics tend to want to stomp out complementary and allied therapies quite a bit, and there's been certainly a campaign through the last year that I've noticed, last couple of years, of doing that, but this is a real turnaround on that. So is the TGA operating separately to the government itself?
Correct, that it is. But they do answer directly to the Minister's office or the Prime Minister's office. So the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, then you've got the AFRA, which is Australian Federal Practitioner Health Authority. They're both controlled by they answer directly to the Health Minister themselves. So they have a fair bit of power. They can shut people down real quick.
Beautiful. And so that's a really good thing to get right on top of and, really kind of sort that out. But I guess if you're a consumer and some of these medicines are a bit kind of, off the track there in what they're saying, how would you know the difference between, some of the supplements that are really fantastic in what they do, and some of them that may not have the quality there or may not have the therapeutic benefit.
Correct, and that's why you need to see a licensed acupuncturist or a licensed Chinese medicine practitioner who've done 5 years training at a university that fully understand the contraindications and the uses of all our herbs and medications. Self-prescribing is a big no-no. I ban my patients from getting on Google and chasing up stuff. It's actually, they come in and they're horrified when they see. That's not what it's about. It's about educating the patients for the right medicine for the right condition. And it comes back to the practitioner themselves.
Absolutely. And when like years ago, I went in for surgery at the Alfred Hospital, and they actually asked me, what, if any, Chinese medicine herbs are you taking? Can you please name them? Which I thought was a really fantastic inclusionary kind of way of not discriminating against people for making use of these kinds of therapies and actually working in conjunction with them. And they were able to actually tell me exactly which herbs I needed to stop at exactly what time frame before surgery, which the Chinese medicine doctor would be able to tell me as well. But they were very clear in being, supportive of that, whereas I went to another hospital, which will remain nameless in the northern suburbs, when I told them and we were going in for surgery and I said, well, this is the list of Chinese medicines I'm on, they actually laughed at me and said, what would you want to know that for? And this guy on the TGA media discussion this morning was actually saying, we need to know what the contraindications are, and people don't know how what they're taking is affecting other things, whereas what you're saying is you tell the patients exactly what those are, don't you? Absolutely. So it's through extensive consultation at the initial appointment with a patient. We go right through their medical history and their medication history. We've all got knowledge of contraindications with herbs and medicines, but I also have a backup with my close family representative works in a pharmacy in an oncology ward in a hospital, and she often rings me for discussions about what medicines or herbs her patients are on and how they're affecting the drug medications they're putting them on. So we're all over contraindications and drugs and herb interactions together. It's a very important part of things. They like to bag us over this stuff, but what they don't understand is we actually probably know more about them than they do. Yeah, I would agree about that one. Certainly having been a patient of yours as well, and it's certainly a very big thing. Is the knowledge of TCM practitioners often is very much countering for the fact that and you guys do ask what kind of Western medication someone's taking as well in a consult, don't you? Absolutely. And in the initial email that when the patient books in to see us, the initial email, not only does it ask the patient to bring in all relevant blood tests, but to bring in the list of medications that they're on, because I can almost guarantee, Jacqueline, they will forget about 2 of the things they're on. Simple things like blood thinners. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you I was on that. Oh, is that why you're bleeding on the bed? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, we need to know that some patients can be reluctant to tell their Western doctor everything that they're doing as far as natural healing and otherwise, because where you guys as natural therapy practitioners are very inclusive in saying, well, let me know what your Western doctor is doing. Let's have a discussion about that. Like, it's full disclosure. Give me all the details so I can best help you. Quite often, Western doctors, you're spending 5 minutes with them and you're out the door before you know it. And the patient either has been afraid to say anything in case they're ridiculed, or they have forgotten to say it because there's not that full documentation going on like what you sort of insist on in that first session. Yeah, exactly right. And coming back to that, I've also got a very good relationship with the local doctors here. They understand what I do and I understand what they do, and we often have conversations about how we're treating and medicine mixes as well with the herbs. So before I put any elderly patient on any herbal formula at all, I insist they can actually go to their pharmacy and get a list of their medications at no cost, and then bring that in, and I'll check it off with my list, and then only after exhaustive research will I then go ahead and prescribe a herbal formula. Beautiful. And do you find that the hyperbole in the media does not represent not just the doctors locally where you are, but do you find that sort of hyperbole is not what's going on the ground, not just where you are, but in other suburbs and areas and towns around Australia?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. I'll be on the Facebook page later this afternoon. It'll all come up then, but they're all going, "Who's this guy? What are they talking about?" That's not like that at all. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, so they can rave all they like. We're happy here.
What do you say when you get some people, however, going on the sort of other tangent of this for a second, you get some people who'll put something up on Facebook like, "I believe everything can be healed by manipulating and tapping into the quantum energies." What would you sort of say to someone who's maybe gone to a healer who does energetic healing and says, "Look, I can fix you," and then, surprise, surprise, they're not magically fixed? How do we deal with patients where they've sort of gone through that situation on the other end?
I've actually had quite a few. I've actually had quite a few like that. So after I finished cringing, I explained to them that they're not a medical practitioner and you can't be mucking around with a person's life.
Yeah, it's too important, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, I've seen it many times with oncology patients. I had one lady came in and told me that a local person, it wasn't anything else, from somewhere else, and they had told them that they were free from cancer because their machine said so. I said, "No way, we don't speak like that. Go back to your oncologist." She went back the following week and the cancer had spread throughout her entire body.
And that's a really sad
very
thing to hear, but it is, I guess that's why we need to have regulations and certain practices around ethics here as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that comes back to the AFRA, the Australian Practitioner Regulatory Health Authority. So we have to do at least minimum 20 educational hours per year. I get around to 70 easily done. We report to them. They can walk in the clinic, go through our files. They have a lot of power. So what I'm getting at is that practitioners must be registered, they must have older standard, and they must have a standard of an education that's acceptable to the Australian federal government, which is a university degree, a bachelor's degree, not a weekend workshop.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's loads of those. I remember when the Louise Hay book came out, You Can Heal Your Life, and to me, I guess the problem I have with that is the oversimplification of medical conditions, and some people have gone around, I guess, blaming themselves for their thoughts as to why they're ill or why they have that particular condition. And then you also get some new age kind of practitioners who are on that sort of same wavelength. They've sort of read that book and they've gone, "Oh, you have this because you've got that line of thinking." I guess while people can have a similar line of emotional attitude that can relate to patients with the same kind of prognosis, you kind of don't want to pin it down to that exact thing because the cause behind illness is so varied, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm a great fan of Louise's work. It works great in combination with what we do, but as a standalone therapy, I think there leaves a lot to be desired. And I'm not disparaging when I say that.
No, and certainly I don't mean to either. I mean, there's certainly a lot that can be done about positive thinking, but I think when it comes down to patient blaming, that's one of the most disempowering things people can do. What sort of things would you say that traditional Chinese medicine helps empower people with?
Well, basically, empower them, basically puts them back in control. So because I do a lot of anxiety and depression work, those fear thoughts can actually take over and change a person's perception and thought pattern so strong. So one of the first things we do on a first consult with a patient is what I call a rebalance treatment. And they'll walk in all fuzzy. You can see it in their face. You can just see they're just not with me. And after a 30-minute session on the bed, I rebalance them and I give them back their own power. So power to the body, so to speak.
How do we deal with women's hormonal issues within Chinese medicine as well? Because that's quite a complex area. But if you had to pick one specific area of women's health, because we don't have much of the show left. But if we could focus on one area of that today, what would you where would you put that, and how would you deal with that?
Yeah, so you're quite correct. Women's health is quite complex. I probably know more about women's periods than a man should know, but at the end of the day, if it helps a woman that walks in the door, I'm happy to do it. So the biggest thing with women's health that we do is actually nourish their hearts. Because when there's heart disturbance, the uterus and the kidneys are not functioning properly, so we have irregular periods, short periods, long periods, crampy periods, moody periods, all of the above. So one of the best things we do, as it goes back to rebalancing, again, Jacqueline, we add extra points in through the REN cycle, the REN meridian, to rebalance the periods, to take down those aggressive hormones that give the women the PMT or the bad period pain, and basically just rebalance them. So it's a connection between the heart, the Shen, or we call that the mind. So the mind, the heart, and the kidneys and the uterus, they're all connected, and they all have a huge impact on fertility and women's health. So calming the Shen, or calming the mind, would be the number one thing that I would be on how I treat a person or a female.
Beautiful. And how do you work with that with, say, a different constitution that someone might have?
Yeah, exactly right. Very good. So this is about the wood, fire, earth, metal and water elements of a patient. So during the consultation, I determine which element they actually fall into, and I basically do that through the emotions that they bring into the room, so if there's a lot of anger, they're normally a wood patient, or if there's joy or sadness, they're normally a fire patient. So with fire patients, there's too much heat in them, so we calm down. We kind of extinguish the flame without putting them out, so to speak. So again, it comes back to rebalancing, and there's different acupuncture points we use for different elements, but they're very similar to each other. There's a core base point that we use, and then we'll add a few more for a water element person would get a few more spleen or kidney points. A metal patient would get a few more lung points. An earth patient would get a few more spleen points. A fire patient would get lots of heart and mind points. And a wood person, well, we just calm them down by taking the anger out of them.
Yes, I've met a number of. I've actually sat in a workshop with you where you explained the constitutions to us as a psychic group, and it's really quite interesting to watch a wood person because it's that light green tinge just sitting at the skin there, and you're like, okay, I know how to read for this person now.
Yes. Makes a difference when you understand the elements too, because it's another category of how we treat, but it is the core essence of a person's nature. So it makes it easier for us as practitioners to treat. If you have an understanding of it, of course. Yeah. Very good.
I didn't hear that last part. Sorry.
I can't remember what I said. It makes it easier for us to treat if you have an understanding of the elements as an acupuncturist. Let's put it that way.
Beautiful. Absolutely wonderful. And so you're up in Whittlesea. How do people find you if they're looking for a consult with you? And do you consult as well at all, like face-to-face, not just face-to-face in person, but also face-to-face over the net at all? Or is it more just the face-to-face?
I prefer face-to-face, Jacqueline, because I actually listen to what a patient doesn't say, and I need to see the facial expression as I'm asking the question. So I'll actually hear more of what a patient doesn't say than what they actually say. Does that make sense?
Beautiful. Yep.
So patients Google me, they find me on Google Maps, they come in, book an appointment, spend an hour with me, they walk out a different person. It's a fascinating modality to be involved with.
Beautiful. So you're at Whittlesea Chinese Medicine Clinic, and what's the website address there?
Yeah, it's why am I saying that? Everyone does it. Whittlesea Chinese Medicine, whittleseachinesemedicine.weebly.com, or basically just put Whittlesea Chinese Medicine Clinic into the Google search engine, and it'll come up both Facebook page and the web page as well. Happy to take to anyone. I often get Facebook messages, people just inquiring. I'm happy to take those. I get a lot of those. Very good.
And so now with your clinic as well, you've added a few different people, and yes, I've got a room there, but you've got other people there as well. What other modalities have you got practicing there as well as the Chinese medicine?
Yeah, so we have a grief counsellor that's here 1 day a week, and we also have an awesome hypnotherapist who's on board and been on board for quite a while. She's fantastic at the quit smoking, weight loss, the sports performance. She helps with depression. She actually backs me up in a lot of work that I do, and we work very well together, and often we'll share a patient on the same day. She's very funny. She actually likes the patient to come to me first because I take them out of their head and calm them down. Then I send them over to her, and she puts them in the zone that they need to be in.
Wonderful. Well, it's been lovely to talk to you again, Dr. Anthony, and next time we'll have to do that in your clinic so that we're just sitting next to each other and having a good old chat. But it's been wonderful talking to you today, and thanks for joining me on the show, and we'll catch you next time.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honour and a pleasure.
Absolutely welcome there, Tony. So thank you also to our callers and listeners. We're sorry we couldn't take any calls just today. We've been busy talking about this, and also we had Tony there on the phone.